Hello friends and welcome to this, your guide to the most haunted, horrifying and downright hellish places on earth. In these videos we talk you through some of the spookiest tales and urban legends from towns and cities across the world, and today we're going to be looking at 5 of the most terrifyingly talked about places in my hometown, Liverpool, England. In at number 5 we have Mackenzie's Tomb. Most folk in Liverpool have heard of Mackenzie's Tomb on Rodney Street, and that's because it's arguably the most unique resting place in the city. The tomb belongs to William Mackenzie, who was a civil engineer who spent much of his career working in Liverpool and was largely responsible for the tunnels near Edge Hill and Lime Street. As well as being a professional tunnel maker, Mackenzie was also a gambling fiend and reportedly made a deal with the devil that he would sell him his soul in exchange for a lifelong look at the gambling tables. After he passed away in Liverpool in 1851, he was laid to rest, as per his instructions, above ground in a monolithic 15-foot pyramid sat upright with a winning hand of cards. His aim was to ensure his body was never committed to the earth to prevent the devil from staking claim to his soul. Many would tell you he was successful, as to this day numerous people claim to see old Bill Mackenzie leaving and entering his triangular tomb, and some even claim to have photographed the gambling ghost himself. In at number 4 we have Speke Hall. Speke Hall is one of Liverpool's oldest buildings, dating all the way back to the 16th century. With so much history behind it, it's perhaps no surprise to learn that numerous people down the years have claimed to catch sight of all manner of unearthly goings-on in the old half-timbered house, and remains open to the public to this day. One of Speke Hall's most famous phantoms goes by the title The Cavalier, and has been spotted by several people throughout the ages. During building work on the hall in the 1950s, workers claimed to have spotted someone who, quote, looked like one of the 3 musketeers, grinning at them from afar. One of the workmen even claimed to have fallen through a hatchway in fright when the devilish D'Artagnan picked up a hammer and passed it to him. The Cavalier made a return in another famous sighting a couple of decades later in the 1970s, when then 13-year-old Charlie Williams would regularly ride his bike to Speke Hall to talk with an eccentrically dressed man. The man named himself as Mr. Pobjoy and would give Charlie lessons in fencing before one day admitting to the boy that he's been dead for years. Understandably, the 13-year-old rode his bike fast and far away from Speke Hall that day and never returned. To this day, Speke Hall remains open to the public and attracts crowds of people throughout the year, either looking to enjoy the picturesque landscape and classical architecture, or those looking for a glimpse of the darker side of those old halls. In at number 3, it's the Bold Street Time Slip. Spend enough time in Liverpool talking to the natives, and you'll likely stumble across someone with a story of the peculiar phenomenon that takes place on Bold Street. Some people call it a time slip, some people call it an anomaly, and some just call it going back to the future. However they describe it, they'll all have the same thing in common. People walking down Bold Street in Liverpool city centre have often found themselves seemingly transported back in time. One of the most well-known stories about the time slip centres on a man named Frank, a former police officer who, in 1996, claimed he was walking from James Street Station to meet his wife on Bold Street. When he reached the road, he realised something was amiss. All the people around him appeared to be dressed in 1940s and 50s apparel. Dumbstruck by what he was seeing, Frank claims he was nearly ran over by a 1950s van with the word Kaplan's written on the side. Understandably confused, Frank crossed the street to what should have been Dillon's bookstore, but instead found himself outside a haberdashery named Cripps. When he entered, he was relieved to find a modern-looking girl carrying a Miss Selfridge bag. Frank grabbed the girl's arm and asked if she could see what he was seeing. With a quick shimmer of the store, Frank suddenly found himself standing in the foyer of Dillon's bookstore. Frank's story may seem a little too far-fetched for some, but there have been over 100 reports of similar experiences on Bold Street since the 70s alone. Just in case, if you ever find yourself travelling Bold Street, play it safe and rent a DeLorean. Number 2 spot goes to the Bloody Acre. The grisly named Bloody Acre can be found in the Liverpool village of Chilwell, and is a patch of land adjacent to the city's oldest house of worship, the All Saints Church. Despite the name, no battle is ever known to have taken place in the Bloody Acre. However, the council long ago promised residents that they would never build on the land lest a terrible curse befall them. The Domesday Book records only a single household on the land, that of the priest, holding 1 caracat of land, approximately 50 acres by today's standards. Some people claim that it was in fact the site of a Civil War skirmish, despite the claims that no battle ever took place on the land. Others still claim that it was part of the Chilwell riots, where new landowners and adherents to the church waged bloody war against each other following Henry VIII's dispossession of church lands. These claims do hold some weight, as cannonballs have been found in nearby Score Lane during building works done since then. Whatever the history of the Bloody Acre may be, it certainly seems to attract wayward spirits, with many locals claiming to see all manner of ghosts wandering the grounds of the All Saints Church, chief among which is the Bloody Acre's famous Angel of Death, a dark, sinister, angel-like figure, said to appear in the acre only when the world is on the brink of war. And our number 1 spot goes to St James's Cemetery. Notorious in Liverpool for being one of the most haunted sites in the entire country, St James's Cemetery may be the only place you need to look to find ghosts, witches, and maybe even a vampire. Located on Hope Street in the city centre's Georgian Quarter, the cemetery has been basking in the shadow of Liverpool's famous Anglican cathedral since 1829 and is the final resting place of almost 58,000 souls. As a result, St James's Cemetery regularly sees reports of ghostly apparitions from visitors all year round. Among the most famous is the ghost of MP William Huskisson, notoriously the first man to ever die from a train accident when he was struck and killed by the Rocket in 1830. People have claimed to see his spirit leaving his grand mausoleum at night ever since. Perhaps the most famous spectre of St James's, however, is its elusive vampire, a figure said to be clothed in coat-tails and top hat and have a sickly blue visage have been sighted numerous times. Often these sightings claim the figure has appeared in places where previously there was only a cloud of fog. In the early 2000s, a young woman who lived nearby claimed to have seen the vampire appear from mist one night, only to return with friends the next night and see the same mysterious occurrence. The young woman and one of her friends ran away upon seeing the monster, but the other friend stayed, frozen in terror, and only reconnected with his friends later that night with a badly broken jaw and no memory of what occurred after seeing the beast. That young lady went hunting for the vampire of St James's Cemetery because she'd heard stories of another woman who lived in her building in the early 1900s who'd also spotted the beast. In those stories, the woman glimpsed the vampire one night before fleeing home, and later that night she peered out of her window to the street below and saw the pale blue apparition standing on her street, looking up to her window. When she left the building the next day, she found a single black rose on her front step, and to this day no one knows what became of the young woman. As an honorary mention, St James's Cemetery is also home to Liverpool's only naturally occurring spring. Spring has been shrouded in mystery for almost 250 years, with some people claiming that the spirits of the dead taint the water, which turns black when you boil it. The Iron Ridge Spring was discovered in 1773 by a group of quarrymen on the eastern side of what is now the graveyard overlooked by Liverpool Cathedral. Due to the spring being located in one of the country's most haunted graveyards, rumours abound about the properties of the water it produces. The source of the spring is still unknown, but tales told through the years have claimed everything from the water being cursed by the spirits of the dead to actually having healing properties and supernatural qualities. When the body of Captain David Gwynn, who died in 1813, was exhumed, it was still preserved and completely solid, and people claim this is due to the spring water which runs in the direction of the captain's grave. The spring flows into a circular basin, which used to be surrounded by an iron railing with a ladle attached so people could easily fill bottles and jars with the miraculous liquid. Today the spring still flows from the rock, and a small plaque above the spring bears the following inscription by Cuthbert Bridgewater: "Christian reader, view in me an emblem of true charity, who freely what I have bestow, though neither heard nor seen to flow, and I have full returns from heaven for every cup of water given." And that wraps up our look at the top 5 most haunted places in Liverpool, England. If you learned something new today, why don't you give us a like? Or if you already knew every story we told, feel free to give us a dislike. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought about these stories. Tell us what ghosts and urban legends you have in your town, or let us know what parts of the world you want us to cover next. Subscribe for more spooky content in the future. Follow us on Twitter at Spatula Twisted for updates and to get in touch. And until next time, stay safe out there.